Let's talk about a semi-monthly pay frequency. What does that mean? Sometimes people get confused between semi-monthly or bi-monthly and bi-weekly. So bi-weekly is going to be paid every other week, for example, every other Friday, whereas a semi-monthly or bi-monthly payroll is going to be paid on designated calendar dates, for example, the 1st and the 15th. So a lot of times that sounds enticing, twice a month, it's very easy and clean, but when you look at the details, it may come out a little bit more complicated than you're thinking. So number one, if you're doing a bi-weekly payroll, usually you're submitting payroll on the same day every other week. So maybe submitting every other Tuesday for employees to get paid every other Friday. When you're on a semi-monthly pay frequency, those calendar days may fall or will fall on different days of the week every time. So if your pay date is on the 1st and that's a Wednesday, you may be submitting the previous Friday for that payroll. You have to have more time in between your pay period end date and your pay date to allow for weekends and holidays unless you have a 1 or 2 day payroll turnaround. And with semi-monthly pay frequencies, it is nice for accounting because those pay periods usually fall within the same accounting period. So I know there's a benefit there, but when you're looking at your workers, if you have hourly workers, the semi-monthly pay frequency is not going to encompass set work weeks. So work weeks are going to be split between pay periods. And so this means that you have to keep track of hours worked during each work week and carry those hours forward from one pay period to the next for the purpose of calculating overtime. If you're using a timekeeping software, usually that's pretty easy. You can have that set up so that the system does that for you. But if you are using paper time sheets, then you do have to keep track of that manually and make sure that you're still paying overtime in compliance with FLSA requirements. Sometimes it's also confusing for salaried employees if they are receiving their first or their final check. With a salaried employee, the standard hours for a semi-monthly pay frequency is 86.67, but that's 86.67 hours every single pay period. There may be 10, 11, or 12 work days in the pay period, so the employee is paid the same amount, even though there may be more or less work days in that pay period. So when you have a first check or a final check where you need to prorate the salary, there are a few different ways you can do that, but it's usually confusing for employees because they're expecting a straight 8 hours per day. When you prorate a salaried employee, you're usually doing a daily rate or taking the number of days employed over the number of work days in that pay period, and then multiplying that by the 86.67 to get their pay. So it definitely can work. I think it works best for salaried employees where we're not worried about overtime. And it works best if you do have more space between the pay period end date and the pay date so that you can wrap up payroll and have time to turn hours in, even if you do have weekends or holidays that fall in between the pay period end and the pay date. Not the best solution for everybody, but definitely a common one, works for some. Bi-weekly is usually your safest bet just because it's not weekly, you're not doing it every week. So you have the benefit of having a week in between payrolls, but it is consistent where you're turning payroll in the same day of the week. Employees are getting paid on the same day of the week, and it's always for 2 full work weeks, which makes it very easy to calculate and track overtime. If you have any questions at all about semi-monthly pay frequencies in general, or anything related to payroll, please feel free to reach out. We love to see comments below. You can also find us online at valorpayrollsolutions.com.